I've spent my entire life being blamed for things my sister did. For as long as I can remember, Sarah could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. She was the golden child, straight-A student, popular, pretty, and according to my parents, incapable of lying or making mistakes. Meanwhile, I was always the scapegoat, the troublemaker, the one who must have broken something or started an argument, even when I was nowhere near the situation. This dynamic was exhausting growing up. If something went missing, I must have taken it. If Sarah failed a test, I must have distracted her from studying. If she came home past curfew, I must have encouraged her to stay out late. My parents never questioned her version of events, and my protests of innocence were always dismissed as lies. I moved out the moment I turned 18, putting myself through community college while working full-time. I've been financially independent since then, though I maintained a distant but cordial relationship with my family. Sarah, now 24, still lives at home with our parents, despite having graduated from the university they paid for. She works part-time at a boutique but spends most of her money on clothes and going out. Last month, my mother called me in a panic. Her anniversary diamond earrings and about $800 in cash had gone missing from her bedroom. These earrings were extremely sentimental. They had been a 20th anniversary gift from my dad, who had saved for months to afford them. My mother was heartbroken. During this call, my mother didn't directly accuse me, but she mentioned that the last time the earrings were seen was during a family dinner I had attended the previous weekend. Her tone made it clear who she suspected. I assured her I hadn't taken anything and suggested she file a police report if she was certain they were stolen. 2 days later, my father called. He was livid, saying they had proof I had stolen the earrings and money. Apparently, Sarah had found a pawn shop receipt in their driveway with my name on it, listing diamond earrings. My father demanded I return the earrings and money immediately, or they would go to the police. I was stunned. I hadn't been to a pawn shop in years and certainly hadn't pawned any earrings. I tried to explain this, but my father wouldn't listen. When I asked to see this receipt, he said Sarah had already given it to the police. That's when I realized how serious this was. My sister hadn't just accused me to our parents, she had filed a false police report. Sure enough, later that day, 2 officers showed up at my apartment. They questioned me about the earrings and money, mentioning the receipt and asking if I had sold anything to Riverside Pawn recently. I truthfully told them I hadn't and allowed them to search my apartment. Obviously, they found nothing. After they left, I was shaking with anger and fear. My sister had gone beyond our usual family drama. She was trying to get me arrested for theft. This could affect my job, my rental history, everything I'd worked so hard to build independently. That's when I decided to investigate on my own. I drove to Riverside Pawn and asked the owner if someone had recently pawned diamond earrings. He confirmed someone had just a few days earlier, but due to privacy policies, he couldn't give me details. When I explained the situation and showed my ID, his expression changed. He said, "Your name is on the receipt, but you definitely weren't the person who came in." I asked if they had security cameras, and they did. The owner was reluctant to show me footage without a police warrant, but when I mentioned the police were already involved and this could clear my name, he relented. He pulled up the footage from the date on the receipt, and there was Sarah, plain as day, presenting ID and filling out paperwork to pawn the earrings. It was surreal seeing her forge my signature on the receipt. She had even dressed similarly to how I typically dress, though she hadn't bothered with much more of a disguise. She clearly never expected the footage would be viewed. The pawnshop owner, now realizing he had unknowingly participated in fraud, made me a copy of the security footage and the transaction details. I thanked him and went straight to the police station with the evidence. When I showed the officers the footage, they were taken aback. One of them had interviewed Sarah when she found the receipt, and he was visibly disturbed by the deliberate framing attempt. They thanked me for the evidence and said they would follow up. 2 days later, Sarah was arrested for theft, filing a false police report, and identity fraud. My parents called me in hysterics, demanding to know how I could let this happen to my poor sister. They were convinced there must be some explanation, that perhaps Sarah had been holding the earrings for safekeeping and just got confused. Even with video evidence of her pawning the earrings under my name, they couldn't accept her guilt. My mother begged me to drop the charges, saying Sarah's future would be ruined by having a criminal record. My father suggested I should claim I had given Sarah permission to use my name to make this all go away. When I refused, saying Sarah needed to face consequences for once in her life, they called me vindictive and heartless. Sarah has been released on bail, which my parents paid. They've hired an expensive lawyer for her and are apparently telling family friends that there's been a misunderstanding and I'm persecuting Sarah out of jealousy. Meanwhile, my mother's earrings were recovered from the pawn shop, but the cash is long gone, likely spent by Sarah. Some of my extended family have reached out suggesting I should show mercy to my sister. My aunt reminded me that blood is thicker than water and that having a criminal record could affect Sarah for life. My cousin pointed out that the earrings were recovered, so no real harm was done. I've stood firm so far, cooperating with the prosecution and refusing to recant my statement. I feel like this is the first time in Sarah's life that she's facing actual consequences for her actions, and maybe the only way she'll learn that she can't keep manipulating people and situations to get what she wants. But the pressure from my family is intense, and sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. Am I the a-hole for letting my sister get arrested instead of helping cover up what she did? Update: thank you all for the overwhelming support and perspective. It helped me stay strong through what came next. Sarah's case went to court last week. Despite my parents spending a small fortune on her lawyer, the evidence was irrefutable. The security footage, the forged receipt, and the fact that she had pawned items under my name previously, something the police discovered during their investigation, left no room for reasonable doubt. She ended up accepting a plea deal, 6 months probation, community service, and mandatory counseling, much lighter than what she could have faced, but still a real consequence. She also has to pay back the missing cash through a structured restitution plan. The most surprising development came after the sentencing. My father called me, not to berate me as I expected, but to apologize. Apparently, when preparing Sarah's defense, the lawyer had asked for any previous misunderstandings involving missing items. My parents provided a list, and the lawyer bluntly told them the pattern was obvious. Sarah had likely been stealing from them for years while letting me take the blame. This forced my parents to confront decades of enabling behavior. My father admitted they had been blind to Sarah's manipulation and unfair to me. My mother hasn't quite reached that point yet. She still makes excuses for Sarah, calling this a cry for help rather than deliberate malice. As for Sarah, she hasn't apologized. When confronted with the evidence in court, she broke down crying, but it was all about how embarrassed she was and how this would affect her life, no acknowledgement of how she tried to ruin mine. I'm maintaining my distance from all of them for now. My father has asked to meet to discuss rebuilding our relationship, and I'm considering it, but with clear boundaries. My mother and Sarah, I'm not ready to speak with yet. Several people asked why Sarah did this. Based on what came out during the case, she had developed a shopping addiction and significant debt. The cash and earrings were just the latest in a series of thefts, and I was the perfect scapegoat based on our family history. To those who suggested I sued her for defamation or identity theft, I considered it but ultimately decided the criminal case was enough. I want to move forward with my life, not stay entangled in legal battles with my family. Thank you again for helping me see that standing up for myself doesn't make me an a-hole. For the first time in my life, the truth about our family dynamic is out in the open, and regardless of what happens next, that feels like vindication.